Blessings and welcome to the Path to Freedom, this beautiful journey that we are on, this amazing adventure where we get to cultivate a new way of life, a way of life that gives permission to a good life to emerge, that gives permission to a life of flow and glow to emerge, that gives permission to a life of ever-expanding peace and love and joy and harmony and wholeness and beauty and expansion and moving forward to emerge. A life where we get to soar, to shine, to glow beyond anything that we've ever imagined, yet continuously in ever-expanding ways. So this is what we're doing. This is what we're in for. This roller coaster ride that is a joyride. It is a roller coastery, and yet it is joyful. So we get to celebrate our way through life. We get to rejoice our way through life. We get to appreciate our way through life, thank our way through life, dance our way through life. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for being here, for joining me. My name is Daniel Roquillo, and as always, I am truly grateful. I am truly grateful that you are here, that you're choosing to tune in, that you're saying yes to being on this path. And actually, that you're choosing to be on this path and that you're making choices that are in alignment with whatever vision you have for yourself, whatever intention you have for your life, whatever the good that you wish to experience may be. Being here, tuning into these messages, into this space is saying yes to all that good. And I'm grateful. And this brings us to the topic for today, which is something about choice. Let me see if I can remember it. We really need to choose it, I believe, is the topic for today. We really need to choose it. And this topic came to me earlier today as I yesterday had a couple of conversations with individuals, seemingly random individuals. Obviously they are not, but I was having a conversation with one individual. They were sharing that they are experiencing a lot of turmoil, bordering to anxiety. They're feeling stressed out, and they were longing for peace and harmony. They were longing for a life void of stress. They were longing for flow. And they were actually saying something to the effect that they wanted to go with the flow of life. And this beautifully led us into, obviously, we got to talk about meditation, and we got to talk about cultivating that beautiful way of life, one of the pillars of freedom, which is practicing the presence, how we get to become more and more mindful, how we get to ground and center and anchor ourselves in ever-expanding ways in the nowness of this moment, coming back to the breath over and over and over again, witnessing and observing, all these beautiful things that pertain to practicing the presence, to that pillar of freedom. And they were sharing, they said that, well, I wish I knew how to do it. And that is such a common and normal excuse that the ego tosses into our face. As the ego does not want us to move deeper into the nowness of this moment, as the ego does not want us to release the temporal way of being or moving through life, where most people hang out either in the past or the future, or sometimes in the present tense, which is not the nowness of this moment either. So the ego uses that notion that we need to know how to do something before we can actually choose to begin to move in that direction. And that was a wonderful opening that allowed us to have a conversation about how we need to say yes first. We really need to choose the life we wish to experience before we know how to do it. Sometimes we do know how to do it, but sometimes we have no clue as to how to move forward, how to begin to move in the direction of, as this individual was speaking into, in the direction of more harmony and more peace in their life. So we really need to choose it. We need to say yes to it. We need to say to ourselves that from this moment on, I am going to be moving in the direction of more harmony, more wholeness, more health, more abundance, more love, more joy, whatever the case may be, you know? We really need to choose it. Unless we choose it, it is not going to happen. It is not going to demonstrate itself. As these beautiful principles of transformation remind us, that the first principle states that if we want anything to change in our lives, we need to change. We need to change something. We need to begin to choose differently. As long as we keep making the same old choices, nothing is ever going to change. And that's the second principle. Unless we change, nothing is ever going to change. And then the third principle states that when we begin to change, everything begins to change. But coming back to the first principle, we need to begin to change before we know how to move in the direction of the good that we wish to experience. Sometimes, as I said, sometimes the path is clear. Sometimes the first step is very obvious to us. Sometimes it's not. As for this one individual who didn't know hardly anything about meditation, who didn't know anything about practicing the presence, who didn't know anything about being mindful. All they knew was that they wanted a different kind of life. So we need to choose it, and we need to choose it. Which brings us to the other conversation that I had the privilege of having just a few days ago. Actually, it was last week, I believe. And this individual, for a period of time, they have been expressing a desire to begin to move in a different direction. But they have not made the choice to do it. So they, in essence, and what they have been saying is that I just wish that my life was different. I wish I had more time to do what I want to do. That is really what they were saying and have been saying. I wish I had more time to do what I feel inspired to do. I know what I feel inspired to do, but I don't have the time for it. Which allowed us to have a slightly different conversation about, once again, how we need to choose it. And so I was able to share with this individual that we cannot sit around waiting for the time, for a block of time to be carved out for when we finally get to do what it is that we wish to do, or what it is that we feel inspired to do. We need to choose to make that time. We need to say yes to it first. Yes, I don't know how I'm going to find the time to do what I'm being called to do, but I will find the time. So we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, last week, and this week, when we came together, they shared that they had made the time. Inspired by the conversation that we had last week, they had now made the time. So they had decided to take some time off and block some time off in their calendar to begin to allow for a space of creativity to emerge, where they can begin to midwife and give birth to that which is seeking to be birthed within them, that which they're inspired to midwife. So for a number of weeks, they've been waiting and waiting and waiting for God to show them how to begin to move in that direction. And it turned out that when they made the choice, when they took responsibility for it, because that's really what this is all about, us taking responsibility for ourselves, us taking responsibility for our own lives, which reminds me that as soon as I've finished this, what I'm about to say, we're going to have a moment of breathing. But this is all about us taking responsibility. This is all about us not waiting for our conditions to be just perfect. This is not about us waiting for our ducks to be lined up. This is about us making the choice to begin to move in a particular direction, saying yes to that which will allow. Because then what happens when we make a new choice is that we raise our vibration, we expand our consciousness, and the universe must and it will rise up to meet us here. The sacred laws correspond to the feeling tone of our nature. And when we begin to move in a new direction, as that third principle of transformation states, when we begin to change, everything begins to change. So when we say yes to something, when we make the choice to begin to move in that direction, that's when things begin to line themselves up. So in this moment, as coming back to the breath is such a profound practice that allows us to stay sane, that allows us to sustain a high vibration, that allows us to be in joy and to sustain the joy. Let's have a moment of conscious breathing. So let us in this now moment take a couple of deep conscious breaths. Breathing in and breathing out. Another deep breath in. And breathing out. Releasing it. So, cultivating this beautiful way of life, cultivating a good way of life, a harmonious way of life, a joy-filled way of life, it begins with us choosing to do so. It begins with us making a new choice, making the choice to begin to move in a new direction. Just as when we're out driving our cars, and let's say that we're driving on a field, and we're driving one of those four-wheel drive cars, electric, obviously, allowing us to have a smooth ride on this field. And any moment on this field, we can make the choice to turn the steering wheel in whichever direction. In any given moment, every single moment is a new beginning. There is nothing holding us stuck in a particular condition, keeping us on a particular path, that is keeping us moving in a particular direction, unless we give our permission to something outside of ourselves, or a story or a belief that we hold on to, that we buy into, to keep us hijacked, to hold us hostage. In any given moment, we have all the freedom. Every single one of us has the freedom to make a new choice, to begin to move in a new direction. We're all free as birds. As you may have heard me share an experience I had it was last year, as I was out on the deck looking out over the fields and the lake, and I saw this bird that was flying across the sky. And what seemed to me, all of a sudden, this bird just turned in a completely new direction. And that was just such a beautiful reminder of the freedom that we all enjoy. That is our birthright. We have all been given the freedom of choice. We have all been given the free will, which allows us to make any choice in any moment. Making a new choice doesn't mean that we need to know how to move in that direction. We can still make the choice to begin to move in that direction. We can still make the choice to have our lives be about something new from this moment on. But we need to choose it. And that's really the essence to all of this, that we need to choose it. Every single possibility already exists in this infinite mind. Every single possibility for every single one of our lives. So when we make a new choice, we're not creating something new. We're simply locking on to something new. We're simply moving in the direction of a new destination, but that destination already exists. Just like a plane flying in the air, they can turn in whichever direction, moving towards a new destination, but they are not creating that destination. The destination already exists. They're just moving in a new direction toward a new destination. And so it is with our lives and every single one of the choices that we're making. That we can continue to make the same old choices, continue to move in the same direction, continue to move toward the same destiny that we have perhaps been moving toward for decades or years and years and years. Or we can begin to move in a new direction. Just like this one individual that made the choice to find the time to allow for something new to be midwifed. And it took her less than a week to find it that time. But she didn't find it until she made the choice to find it. And the other individual that was longing for harmony and wholeness and was waiting for someone to tell them how to do it. And now they made the choice. I actually bumped into them today again. And they shared that they have made that choice. They still don't know how. So I was able to share some tools and techniques and practices, and invited them to take one of my courses, the Practice in the Presence course, which will provide them with tools and practices and techniques to begin to allow for more harmony. But it wasn't until they made that choice that this opening revealed itself. So let's take another deep breath. Breathing out. Another deep breath in. And releasing it. So the invitation for us in this now moment is to witness and observe our own life. Witness and observe, becoming aware of where we're waiting for something or someone before we can make a particular choice, before we can make a new choice. Where are we buying into the story that conditions need to be just perfect? They need to be just right before we can make this new choice, before we can begin to move in a new direction. And questions to ask is, where am I experiencing a sense of being stuck? Where am I stopping myself because I don't know how to move forward? Because I cannot see the path that lies ahead. Another question that we can ask, a very powerful question that we can ask is, this choice that I'm about to make, that I just made, is this in alignment with the good that I wish to experience? Is this moving me in that direction? And if the answer is no to this question, then that's a beautiful invitation for us to make a new choice, to allow for a higher choice to emerge, to give ourselves permission to begin to move in a new direction. So these are the invitations and the questions. Thank you so much for participating, for tuning in, for joining me. Until we meet again, I absolutely, as always, bless our days, and I bless our ways, in the full knowing that all is well, that something wonderful is happening, that everything is working for our highest good. With much love and many blessings. Namaste.